AI is all I hear about now. AI is all anyone hears about now.
See, we are in a new territory.
Figuring it out.
We need to understand something that this is not something that happened before.
There's been so much of a debate online about the ethics behind AI, right? When AI is being used and so many people are being laid off, AI is being used to make decisions.
I think I'm a true believer that business is how they are involved.
Yes.
Because a better system,
Yes.
better mechanisms and streamlining that you end up doing internally
Yes.
helps you position yourself perfectly for the market itself, and also helps you take some key decisions as you go along
Yes.
on your business journey. Ensuring the productivity factor takes the center stage and eliminate some of the human intervention where the automation can take the center stage.
67% of HR professionals say AI has improved their hiring speed.
So when there's data being collected, analysis paves the gold mine of how you end up taking
Right.
decisions again.
Is this something that will always remain as just a tool? Welcome to the Legacy Room podcast by CSO. I'm your host Piyushi Sharma, and here we have conversations with CXOs leading the future. Today we have Kirit Mandavgane, CSO at Nquare Experts. Hi Kirit.
Right.
It's lovely to have you here on our show today. So for all our viewers, Kirit is mainly known for his work in AI and digital transformation. And speaking of AI is all I hear about now. AI is all anyone hears about now. You go on social media, you go to work, you go to book a cab for yourself. AI is absolutely integrated into most things that we do today. People even have AI friends now. So my main question is AI actually a trend, or is AI here to stay and not something like blockchain, which used to be trendy for about 2 years and then faded off the map?
AI is definitely here to stay, and of course, it's a big term, and it is going to be helpful on how enterprises specifically are adapting to it, and how it will continue to help a lot of automations, specifically speaking. But now, when we speak about AI, it turns out to be very comprehensive term to very colloquially end up using it. Now there's Gen AI, which is
Generative AI, yes.
exactly, which is something that automates quickly on text, images, audio. These days you can also quickly create music as well based on some of the parameters you push in. So it is definitely here to stay. It is very evolving stream of field, which will again has to be harnessed very carefully. And currently on how it is evolving, it on a very sort of on a plethora of how enterprise will eventually
Yes.
keep on working out to make
Very fast, yes, it
correct,
is.
correct, for their automations as well as for their line of businesses, how it's going to also help them work it out on technical abilities or enhance the capacities. So based on functions and other technical areas as well, but it's a comprehensive term, absolutely.
Great, perfect. So that makes a lot of sense because generative AI is what most people know about since it has the most consumer usage over the world.
Yeah.
Right? I think with ChatGPT launching and going really into full flow over the last 1 year, and actually ChatGPT's primary user base is Indian. Based on some of the data that they recently released, we are the highest consumers of ChatGPT. So that's what we hear most about, whether it's Sora, Midjourney, all of these generative AI things that are being used for text, image, and video generation. However, I want to talk a little more about AI from the business point of view, where generative AI is not used as much, but other forms of AI. Could you tell us about what other practical uses of AI could be integrated into businesses?
Yeah, there are a number of ways, and also depends upon what functions that the businesses are adopting it for. For example, simple as helping writing emails,
Yeah.
having some data inputs or reports worked
Yeah.
out for yourself on a very fixed parameters, where certainly there is a lot of human intervention where these kind of data inputs can help generate a
Yes.
lot of automations around it. And there's Microsoft Copilot out there, which is
Yes.
little bit pretty much vesting itself around Microsoft ecosystem along with the dataverse, and something which will also provide data based on fixed security parameters from the net as well.
Right.
So all of these things can help businesses not only to achieve minuscule personal level of automation or help in their daily activities, but can get very comprehensive, specifically on wherever there is data there's a lot of information, and how you eventually end up have a conclusive corroboration of data that works out for decision making and KPIs is something that is definitely on a basic use case, I would rather say, and it gets even more comprehensive as we go along.
True. So when we talk about digital transformation for businesses, this is something that's imperative now. All businesses have to get, up to date on digital practices to be able to survive in any competitive market across industries, right? So AI is a part of it. Let's talk about what goes in digital transformation beyond AI. What do we consider a total holistic, comprehensive view of digital transformation?
So again, I'll tell you, when you talk about digital transformation, again, it's a very big term.
Yes.
And we are on a very basic definition of it is making something work out on a digital transformation format where there is digital information worked out on less of paperwork, less of human intervention, and automation corroborated towards the KPIs and data inputs. Now, organizations have different demands based on different verticals or horizontal they are focusing upon. And these kind of elements change, and that's the reason some of the transformation platform as well has created some modules which end up being specific to that industry and function. For example, talking about Dynamics 365,
yes,
they have on functional focus wise, they have something that focuses on sales, marketing, then customer voice, as an element, as a factorial of customer service as well. There's field service as well that also focuses on the field service factor that is actually being imbibed through facilities management companies, or even field service that is required for manufacturing, for B2B, B2C. So all these kind of elements are very nature on how a specific business eventually want to adapt to their system and their ecosystem on how they operate.
So I'm glad that you mentioned so many of these different functions, because I wanted to ask, in your opinion, when a business just begins digital transformation, what are the core functions and sub-functions they need to automate first, and what are maybe a little lower in the priority order?
Yeah, well, it can be elemental to actually focus on the customer side. Something that works out your functions like maybe sales, or your customer service, even HR function. Because no matter how much you want to really view a business from outside, I think I'm a true believer that business is how they are inward.
Yes.
Because a better system,
yes,
better mechanisms and streamlining that you end up doing internally,
yes,
helps you position yourself perfectly for the market itself, and also helps you take some key decisions as you go along on your business journey.
Yes.
So again, a very, very deep topic that can branch into multiple things, but this has come down to the basics of it.
Basics of it. I'm glad you mentioned decisions as well, because there's been so much of a debate online about the ethics behind AI. Right, when AI is being used and so many people are being laid off, AI is being used to make decisions. So when it comes to a business perspective, where do you feel AI should be leveraged to have decision-making authority, or where should it be used as just a tool, and how much of a power should we give it for all of the different core functions of a business?
Yeah, as of now, there's a good and a bad answer for that.
Right.
So good answer is the current AI ecosystem is definitely based on the parameters and how you end up that typical for the business function, limited to business function. AI will end up behaving exactly what on the algorithms and way it's been fine-tuned for business workout. But especially when the AI, whatever experts have their own predictions and things, it sometimes comes around to be a little scary as well. Typical use case of contract management where AI is being used for scrutiny or reviews and whatever the data it's collecting,
sensitive data.
Yeah, what's happening to that sensitive data, how it has been internally corroborated.
Yes.
All these things are something that eventually experts are also see, we are in a new territory.
Figuring it out.
You need to understand something that this is not something that happened before. every new evolution is causing more responsible
Every
ethics
day it's progressing
demand.
faster.
Yeah, exactly. So it is has its own again comprehensions or complications attached to it. But I think let's let humanity itself take it step by step, and business will let it work it out on control format based on the automations they require.
Absolutely. So when it comes to core functions like, maybe just admin and logistics, AI is pretty easy to use and there's not much of a cybersecurity threat, right? But when it comes to AI doing a little more humane functions like deciding employee retention and attrition, and also talking about really crucial sensitive data when it comes to, bank details and transaction codes, that's where you're saying that AI should be, carefully used, and let's use it as a tool and not as an authority figure.
Yeah.
Right?
So of course, this legacy AI system like Microsoft Copilot,
Right.
those are by design work on the
Right.
secured spaces of what it can fetch.
Yeah.
So I think our developers have been crucially working towards the security part.
Right.
But as we go along on different format of AI capacities, that will be a continued problem that that organizations or even
Yes.
some of the developers have to look into as we
Yes.
go along.
So, what part of AI should businesses look most into when it comes to regulation? Where should they look into for security the most? And where should they keep a very tight watch and restrictions on how much data AI can collect and use and modify?
See, again, it's a good question. Now, you have to understand that organizations or businesses have to um, ensure the peripheries or parameters of their organizational ISMS. Especially, I think again I'm mentioning Copilot because it is pretty much controlled
Yes.
under its own ecosystem, and
Yes.
especially GPTs that have
Yes.
been used, Chat GPT, etc.
Yes.
There's a good security threat that one of the security experts that had attended one of those conferences had flagged it as well.
Yes.
That when you input, if your organizational employees are inputting data for some sort of quick fix automation they require,
Yes.
you're still putting some data freely, which is
Yes.
freely available.
Yes.
So now organization themselves has to understand that how these kind of again parametering or maybe some of the security items have to be carefully
Yes.
rigged out in a such a way that your
Yes.
data or the customer data, which is another important factor for businesses,
Yes.
still is protected.
Yes. So, would you say if businesses can do this, they should create their own versions of AI? So, even if the employees are inputting sensitive data into it, the backend data remains with the organization and doesn't go to a third party AI application or organization.
Yeah, means while you're using system, I think what organization have to carefully understand the systems or AI automation that these everyone is using are ensuring how they are eventually behaving with the data, and are using some of the AI tools that adhere
Yeah.
to these security protocols.
So, as your role as CSO, in a day in your life, where do you use AI the most?
Of course, we are while we are solving this problem for our customers, we are also using this thing. I think we have been using this thing for our own systems on sales and automation. We, for individual team players, they're also using this for enhancing their maybe the productivity. Yeah, also helps me tremendously on their day-to-day activities. We have also been using that thing. In fact, we came out with a product for recruitment called the GenieHire.ai. It exactly helps on reducing human
Yes.
intervention on the interviews
Yes.
and all these facets. So yeah, we are also taking newer steps into ensuring the productivity factor takes the center stage and eliminate some of the human intervention or where the automation can take the center stage.
That sounds like a very effective way of using AI. So, you work a lot with AI for recruitment purposes specifically, right? Can you elaborate on using automation for recruitment?
Yeah, see, the best on a very basics of it. Imagine a day in and day out recruitment team's ordeal,
Right.
especially when there are hundreds and thousands of interviews.
Take me through it from
Yeah.
morning to night. Yeah.
Yeah, so imagine these team members doing consistent profiling, matching skill sets,
Yes.
doing calls, and see all these kind of things, activities are day in and day out, but also are very rigorous in nature, and again time factored. So you're losing for every process, you're losing out time. Might be possibility you're losing out on a right candidate or potential candidate as well. So all these things with tremendous amount of interviews that are being processed by the team members as well, along with the back end work and everything, takes a lot of time. Now what Genie Hire or whatever the solution that we have come out with is
Right.
to actually carve out this time to make it faster.
Yes.
For example, a recruitment team or one of those members taking first initial screenings or second level screenings, that human capital, that same person can be utilized on certain more expertise oriented profiling instead of having that time spent out.
Right.
So these kind of things can be now based on a solution can be done. There are other competition platforms as well who end up doing the same thing on taking interviews by the bot itself, while the interview taken by the bot is being conceived on the answers given on the fixed parameters as well.
Right.
Also understands the eye contact. Also
Yeah.
there's a proctoring involved into it.
Yeah.
So all of this process can now be taken charge by AI based on the assessment parameters that have
Yeah.
been already pre-fed into the system, which now ensures that there is less of a human intervention to take care of having those interviews. And imagine this happening in bulk. So you can now understand that this will be a quicker process.
Scale. You're aiming
Yes,
for scale here.
exactly. On a scale that happens upon it, along with the team members can spend their time on more human
Right.
factored
Time, utility, and scale seems to be your main priorities.
Exactly. So this is where the whole solution takes again the center stage to eventually carve out that time, increase turnaround time, increase accuracy, reduce biasness specifically.
Yes.
All these things will also improve with this sort of automation solution.
That makes so much sense because there's been so much discussion about how can AI truly take over the job of an HR function, which is something that's so human to human based, right? So a LinkedIn report says that 67% of HR professionals say AI has improved their hiring speed. So how do you train your AI to have better recruitment parameters?
Yeah, so it depends on the specific skill sets that need to be screened
Right.
in terms of specific skill set, deep dive into technology, deep dive
Yes.
into psychological analysis as well, and also the spontaneity of answering. All these algorithms have to be worked out for bot to give a better analysis or the scores. And of course, this when it happens in scale,
Yeah.
I think analytics plays another important role because there's still a lot of data being collected. So when there's data being collected, analysis paves the gold mine of how you end up taking
Right.
decisions again.
Right.
So these kind of things eventually bring in a lot of efficiency, honestly speaking, and
Right.
how the number says on 67%,
Right.
it's pretty much logical.
It
how
is, yeah.
how more businesses will eventually adapt to certain automated system on the recruitment platform
Right.
as they go along.
Right. So, do you believe, in your personal opinion as CSO, that AI can completely replace the human function by replacing human judgment and discernment in hiring? Or is this something that will always remain as just a tool?
I'll tell you, it's not at that spectrum of that end spectrum of it will replace human intervention. I think this is the current scenario. It's helping to take first, second level, or third level even screenings to eventually make humans or the team members to arrive at a more logical decision.
Yes.
And saving that time and that precious bandwidth to devote to something more something human intelligence specific
Yes.
activities. So it doesn't has to be replacement as a word or verbiage, but it's gonna help to have better teams, better opportunities given to better purpose of the role that has been required, and eventually deliver the whole because team is what organizations are eventually.
Yes.
And eventually work it out towards the overall organizational progress.
Right. So since you mentioned also that AI is being trained on historical data, but there has been a lot of historical data that shows some sort of bias in hiring. Unfortunately, over the centuries, there has been practices all over the globe, but there's been HR bias a lot of times while hiring. How could we train AI to exempt the bias from the data that it's using to train itself? Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, on a somewhat level, and the biasness comes out of a lot of specific um, human psychological factors as well. Your visual aid, eye contact. Sometimes it also helps. Sometimes it does not help. Sometimes a mere name or all other things also create that. I think
Yes.
when a bot is doing that for you, I think it will
Yes.
completely focus on the skill set and the answers and what it's supposed to hear and how it's supposed to be heard.
Yes.
Based on the judgment will happen. So on a certain terms, it will definitely take away the biasness. But what will happen is eventually, where humans will eventually come into the picture of having that human instinct level judgment.
Yes.
That plays a crucial role. That's not
Yes.
going to go away.
Right.
So you can have a bot trained to actually visualize proctoring part or even your eye contact and everything. But some of these instincts that possibly and human intervention will add its own brownie point will remain the way it is.
So AI could be used in the first round to see metrics in terms of merit,
Yeah.
and then the second round could have a human touch. So that way we have a holistic approach.
Yeah, means I'll tell you, of course, this is again evolving, like this engine on psychometric analysis and everything.
Yes.
These days you cannot really on a very firm term say, okay, this is
Yes.
exactly required, this is exactly how it's going to happen, because as we speak, a lot of newer engines are being built to actually treat biasness as well, or treat some of the human factors that can be also parameterized. So
Yes.
that's why I said in the beginning of our discussion as well, it is evolving field.
It is.
We are going in direction that possibly as we go along, will answer some of the questions. I think these pitfalls or problems also will pave to a little bit better evolution as well.
Yes.
But yeah, we are on the uncharted ones as we go along for
Yes.
sure.
And especially since you mentioned psychometrics, that's such a interesting field to explore with hiring, because earlier people used to use the Myers-Briggs MBTI psychometrics to hire, and then it was deemed as unreliable. So then people started going to DISC assessments. Then now DISC assessments are also kind of deemed unreliable, right? So what kind of psychometrics are best used when it comes to hiring, especially using automation?
I think it can be standardized based on the
Standardized tests, or do you think it's better for businesses to create an individual test and put it in their automation system?
Yeah, I think that can be one of those models. See, I'll tell you again, it's what sort of skill set, what level of people,
Okay.
how recruitment wants to standardize their
Right.
their requirement based on instinct. Some
Right.
of the requirements are more monotonous nature. Some of the requirements can be always more sort of incubative in nature. I think every sort of requirements will eventually pave the way how specifically, and these bots or these specific solutions can be trained in accordance to perceive those factors or
Right.
parameterize those factors to give eventual scoring, to give eventual outcome out of it.
Right. So most applicants now that apply for jobs, regardless of their designation or years of experience or education, will have to go through some form of automation process, right? What are some tips you would give to people who are applying for jobs to be able to get through the first round of screening, which is automated or AI based?
I'll tell you something. It doesn't really changes much for the interviewee, I guess, or person who's getting screened. I think the game is simple. You should know
Yeah.
what your field of expertise are,
Yes.
and I think rest is something that eventually, so be it as a human or in-person screenings
Right.
or a system taking interviews. I think whatever the capturing is happen is basically on the aptitude that you have,
Yes.
or the expertise that you carry, and that will eventually, if you are good enough with those factors as an SME, as an expert in technology,
Yes.
or any function, that will eventually take care of eventually what the goal will be or the outcome would come out of the solution.
Right. Since we're approaching the hiring boom, which happens in September each year, would you say that it's better to apply as a generalist or apply as a specialist or an SME, like you mentioned, which is a subject matter expert for our viewers? Since there's a lot of debate about the unemployment rates in India, and not just in India, overall globally, we've been noticing a trend of people are uploading so many case studies where they keep applying despite having master's degrees and they're unable to find jobs, or if they find jobs, they're just very low minimum wage paying. So what are some maybe key tips you would give to people who are about to apply in this next cycle of hiring?
Based on the estimations, I guess there are hardly any tips. I would rather end up, and it'll be too much of directives that I would end up giving onto this case. But I think the systems are allowing now to because it is allowing organization to actually inculcate masses and have lot of raw talent also given a chance or
Right.
opportunity, which seemingly became a little bit cumbersome for us, because see, organizations or recruitment teams end up working on tremendous pressure,
Yes.
and sometimes they have to at a spot deliver
Yes.
the outcome. Sometimes they have to work towards some groomable skill sets as well, or groomable
Right.
sort of contenders as well. But now the situation is changing with the bots and masses, and how much appetite the systems have to also give chance to actually something called as true aptitude.
Right.
And that also branches out to the some of the branches that are coming out, where true aptitude learning versus true aptitude
Yes.
opportunities, where functions or certain ways organization can also identify, okay, there was a particular person required for particular task, but they have identified, or the bot has actually indicated aptitude on something that has been captured and might want to divert that talent into that sort of direction.
Right.
These kind of data points will also help some of the newer opportunities or even masses to actually get that opportunity or worked out for them.
Going back, you've mentioned merit, you've mentioned psychometrics, you've mentioned aptitude, and you've mentioned more of a subject matter expertise, so
Yeah.
specialist. Earlier, we used to see a lot of generalist hiring happening in India, but with AI coming in, now we're seeing more of experts being hired because of the automation process happening, right? So now that we have integrated AI into the hiring sub-function of HR, what other sub-functions do we see AI going further into, right? We have DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have retention. We have the attrition problems that most companies face, where people tend to leave the company really quick right after getting trained, and they have to go through the training cycle all over again, increasing their cost, reducing their time utility. And here is where most companies struggle with HR. So how can AI and automation help with these sub-functions?
Sub-functions would rather, it comes down to in a situation where I would not also include functions like sales,
Yes.
customer service. I think apart from what AI or the solutions are doing for HR or the recruitment or sub-functions, or maybe evaluation systems of performance evaluation, where again AI can help to take a very, very precision parameter points on the assessments that is required for evaluation
Assessments.
phases. Yes. For sales function specifically speaking, if you have most of the solutions are also inculcating having AI sales agent
Yeah.
who can quickly deliver what customer inquiries are all about.
Yes.
How they can eventually quickly walk through the resolution they require.
Yes.
Estimations or the quotes or whatever. Customer service, a classic customer service use case can be, for example, when a customer is calling the call center for a certain issue, and if the call center personnel has to refer some knowledge basis specifically, and might take some turnaround, instead of let me get back to you, that recording or the keywords that are being bot can actually deliver suggestive answers, that immediately the call center person be able to deliver answer or queries, or just carve out some turnaround time and eventually have more customer satisfactory rate.
Right. So my last question about AI being used in the HR function is, how can it be used, AI and automation both, for learning and development purposes? Do you believe that all employees should be trained for the basics of AI, or should it be specific and again expertise based on their exact role in the function?
No, I think it's good to have potential even institutions specifically who are also adopting The placement cell is also adapting to have the systems only train their the students on the practicing specific to SME or some of the questions that we are relating to have themselves trained on how also see it's one of those things. If you want to be precise and correct, for example, if you it's an olden time exam, it doesn't really matter how much you know, but if you're not going to write properly and clearly, you're not able to invigilator to actually help you understand what you're trying. It's similar way. I think more precise and fine tuned you become, because if you know there's no human intervention, there'll be no apprehensions or co-apprehensions that possibly, okay, I understand. Bots will be needing those sort of keywords, correctness of that answer, which will reflect the aptitude of yours. So any trainings or institutions or colleges adapting to this platform, they should, which they are also adapting, they are catering to some of them as well, helps candidates to fine tune themselves with these relationship with a bot and you being assessed through it.
That's such a great metaphor that you used. Kirit, a lot of your work has been in the field service sector. Could you elaborate for us what that sector comprises of and what exactly is the field service model?
So, field service sector is an huge field in its own way. It is omnipresent. You can take anything. It's any industry in your mind, and that field service part comes into the picture. Talk about manufacturing. Talk about facilities management, healthcare. It's just there on a very basic terms. On a B2B sort of setup, it comes from right from maintenance, machinery installation, maintenance, preventive maintenance, then also it as an imbibed part of it as work order scheduling, and how usually this industry works to ensure the specific industry organizations who end up providing such services. So it's a pretty much extensive field in its own way.
Could you give us some primary examples of which businesses are seeing the highest growth for this model? Is it beauty? Is it home care? Is it medical?
See, there are segments which are always newer segments keep on coming into this, but on a very on a high level, there are B2B and B2C segments, especially manufacturing sector in its own self, which again consists of SCM. Logistics. We have got consistent expansion going on the real estate side with facilities management companies catering to these terms, right from the building maintenance along with the machinery maintenance, along with janitorial services. So this field keeps on expanding itself wherever the field service and work order scheduling as well as the technician or customer eventualities are required.
So from the model that you've explained, it seems quite labor intensive, which makes sense for an economy like India, where that's our highest capital as a country, right? In the economy, labor is what we have available the most, and at a very vast scale in terms of demographics across the country and the states, right? So where else do you see geographically this expanding? We have India. Which other countries are adopting this service model the most?
Of course, it's been everywhere for that matter, but I think progressing economies always end up taking the front foot on these kind of things, where again not only the field itself, but the field itself field service calls for automations and better efficient processes for first call resolution. How you end up precisely doing have precision work order scheduling with its turnaround, how the case management of cases are turned around, how your FCRs are efficiently tackled. All these things become a very eventual factor of having a consistent efficiency driven environment for a service provider and as a customer as well, which is again critical system. For example, IoT as a factor, for example, chillers specifically when or the machinery, a critical breakdown specifically can be avoided by IoT integrations, where the data inputs are thrown consistently into the system, which again has proximities of preventive maintenance or before failure avoidance. All these kind of things eventually take a very heavy demand on on the service provided on the field service, and again which the end consumer or the companies that eventually heavily rely on this equipment to ensure that these maintenances are done properly or within the time frame.
Yes. So, do you believe that this service model is something that we will continue to see in economies like India's, or is this something that we can see expanding also in economies that are further developed, such as the likes of the Western countries or maybe the top 10 economically highest countries in the world?
No, it's going to be a consistent developing this thing, and it will keep on evolving, because wherever industrialization along with the manufacturing side or even other peripheries, because we are talking about field service as a sector, right, from B2C as well, omnipresent in its own way, and wherever the delivery and efficiency is required, these kind of system, for example, the field service automation system that we have also developed ensures, and we are talking to some of the enterprises, and the more and more we understand the problem statement on, right from having a transformative system along with efficiency driven sort of setups with the automation, that's we are also helping our clients with. So this is a heavy demand sort of sector in its also, which will technically keep on progressing, or will have consistent automation demands as they go along.
Right. Out of all of the case studies that you worked on, clientele that you worked on, automation services, what has been the most interesting and what has been the most challenging?
Interesting part is see, challenges of certain end clients possibly, they are pretty much subject matter experts in their decorum of operations, and sometimes they are not aware of where the efficiency or time saving or where the human intervention can be carved out. That's where organizations like us come into the picture to ensure not only we are vesting them with a system, but also understanding their processes and incubating some of the system and efficiencies that can be helping them to have better efficiency worked out for any sort of job function that comes within the time frame or the ecosystem of their operations. And that becomes a challenge, a good challenge to actually to be tackled off as they go along. And since the system or the challenges which comes with again the budgets and these kind of automations are pressing on some of the investment factors as well, but what we ensure organizations to make them aware of this adaptiveness is scalable in nature, which is evolving in nature, and the investments or whatever challenges that feel on a very short term, okay, this is something that we don't require or might require, we encourage them to adapt it anymore, because this will eventually help them have further streamlining as they go down the road.
Yes. So when it comes to, let's do a comparison between the small sized enterprises, mid size, and then the larger scale enterprises. Where do you find the need for automation and field service models, HR for recruitment, all of that the most? Where do you find it if in terms of ranking and priority?
Clearly, bigger organizations tend to require relevant automation because there's a lot of audience, a lot of cogs.
What is their key priority? The first function they look into?
I think key priority should be looking into their ground level systems.
Ground level
or processes. I think automation without a process will be a havoc. So not a matured organization that specifically you mentioned about large organizations, they have achieved a level of very process driven. Some of the process driven environment eventually can be time consuming, but it delivers efficiency. Now wherever there's a process, there's an eventually good part of automation that can take place on a superficial nature, and that automation and the processor can be further refined to have that efficiency driven. What happens in a smaller organization, they are evolving. It's like definitely automations will eventually can be taken care based on the functions that they are requiring to do. But honestly speaking, on mid-level, or again it's a huge statement I would rather make, but I want to really take it with the pretext that wherever there is a process, elongated processes with a huge mass of things to be tackled, I think that's where the automation would be a more priority as compared to other maybe less intensive effort orientations.
Right, and for the smallest size organizations that are just taking their first step, something like a startup, something that's bootstrapped, maybe something that's turned from a home business to now something that's a little more legitimate, where should they first look into?
I think based on again these kind of businesses, what sort of problem they are solving to begin with, that would be first nature of understanding. I'm pretty sure most of the startups are good with the problem solving or the product or the solution idea they have come out with. The problem they tackle is initially the functional part of the story, where they would need, like, for example, recruitment teams, which again cost centric or cost centers that possibly are demanding in nature. I think those are the cost centers, or some of the functions can be also thought about to have more AI involved into it, for them to easily focus on to the good part that they are more proficient about, and then other functions can be taken care through other automations as well.
So that brings me to my last question, Kirit, for today, which is, what are your top trends that you predict for AI and automation for the next couple of years?
AI itself, if you rather say till 2031, the industry prediction is almost around 200 trillion or 200 billion, I guess. That's
the economy of the market size?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's a big number.
That's a big number, and when we're talking about it, we're talking about this as an umbrella term. Every field that you can contemplate upon right now in off your mind will have an AI factorial coming in. And that makes this industry very, very opportune. It brings out a pretty much opportune or conducive environment for right from the individuals seeking their first steps into tech environment as a service provider, or startups who are incubating solutions specifically on the AI segment. Of course, there will be proliferation, but proliferation also brings a lot of avenues and more surgical solution that caters to specific industry, specific function, or specific objectives as well.
Right.
So we're talking about extensive demand as this AI factor becomes a mojo for a lot of organizations. Coming back to some of the practical terms on current systems as well, where we're talking about ERP, CRMs, where it becomes a centrifugal point for any organization to operate with ERP and CRMs. And organizations like us eventually help businesses to adapt to AI specific solutions and automations to eventually have very practical roadmap for their current business scenario, or how internal functionalities and how they become more efficiently posed into the competitive market, and how they end up catering to their customers. So that's on a very high level, but we are talking about some serious comprehensions and complications as we go along, as far as AI capabilities and implications are concerned.
Right. So to summarize, your trends are that it's going to be a part of all industries, very deeply integrated. Second, that it's going to have a lot of demand across sectors.
Yeah.
And third is that the main use will always be efficiency and cybersecurity.
Absolutely. I think in AI platform or in a plethora of things, security will keep on having its increasing demands. And I think most of the AI solutions or specific objective solutions that are eventually being laid out in the market are focusing on that, which will eventually, because no matter what you end up doing, service sector or the product sector eventually deals with a lot of privacies, and I think that will eventually have its own adherence worked out.
Alright, that brings us to the end of our episode. Thank you so much for your time, Kirit. Those were some fantastic insights for our viewers. And to all our viewers, thank you for tuning in to the Legacy Room. Until we see you next time with Legacy that is Earned.